Welcome to Lakeshore Baptist Church. On this special evening as we gather to honor and celebrate the retirement of our beloved Sharlande Sledge. Throughout her 40 years of dedicated service, Sharlande has been a beacon of faith, wisdom, and compassion in our church community. Her ministry has touched countless lives, whether through her thoughtful sermons, her writings within the liturgy, her pastoral care in times of joy and sorrow, or her unwavering commitment to making God's love tangible in our midst. As we reflect on Sharlande's journey with us, we are reminded of the countless moments she has shared with our congregation here at Lakeshore. The baptisms she's performed, the weddings she has blessed, the lives she has counseled, and the wisdom she has imparted. Sharlande, your legacy will continue to resonate through the halls of Lakeshore Baptist Church and in our hearts has been full and fortunate enough to know you. This afternoon is our opportunity to express a profound gratitude for Sharlande's faithful service and to celebrate the next chapter of her life's journey. We have prepared an evening filled of memories, poetry, messages, and of appreciation, and also a little bit of food. To Sharlande, your dedication to our church family has been a testament to your deep faith and loving spirit. While we will deeply miss your regular presence among us, we rejoice in celebrating this milestone with you and sending you forth with our blessing into this new season of life. Please join me in showing our appreciation for Sharlande as we begin this evening of celebration.
Well, thank you all for coming. Special thanks to those who have traveled from especially far away, and I hesitate to give a list of those because I'm sure I'll miss somebody, but I just think some of these should be mentioned. Bill and Libby Bellinger here from North Carolina, Judy and Buddy Prather here from Kansas, Rick and Betsy Battistoni just walked in a few minutes ago. They're here from Rhode Island. Mike and Rachel Shreddy, are you here yet? I know they're on their way. Coming up from Houston, Becca Sharpless, I saw over here somewhere. There's Becca, who's here from Fort Worth. Joe Pendleton, I saw who's here from, I think, San Antonio. Let's see, Becky DeLong, who's Nancy Wingo's niece, I believe, and I have not had the pleasure of meeting, but over here somewhere. Over here. Nancy Wingo was a very close friend of Sharlande's with whom she traveled to Gaza. And so it's meaningful for you to be here today. Gail Hobbs from Dallas. Let's see, have I missed somebody? Anyway, thank you all for being here. We're here to celebrate the lives and the talent of Sharlande, but actually of three most remarkable women. First, we celebrate the ministry of Sharlande Sledge on the occasion of her retirement from regular employment here at Lakeshore after serving on the staff for about 40 years. It'll be kind of the middle of 2025, but she's within 6 months now, so I'm rounding off to 40. So she's worked with 6 senior pastors and countless other staff members, interns and volunteers, and so now Sharlande herself will become one of those volunteers. But in that capacity, she will continue to serve as Lakeshore's writer in residence with that title, a title that she assumed at the beginning of this year. All of us here have benefited from Sharlande's gift of writing, but I don't think all of us have a real concept of the breadth and reach of her influence. If you Google Sharlande's name, which is a pretty easy thing to do because there just aren't a lot of hits when you of wrong people if you put in Sharlande Sledge. And so if you Google that, what you find is that her prayers and litanies that were written mostly for Lakeshore services, a few of which were published in her book, Prayers and Litanies for the Christian Seasons, they have appeared in hundreds of worship bulletins, sermons, and other presentations in churches of various denominations in the U.S. and abroad. One of the sort of discoveries I had a couple of years ago that I really enjoyed was I found out that Sister Elizabeth Davis opened her address at the convocation of Queen's College, Newfoundland in Canada with one of Sharlande's Easter prayers. And Sharlande knew nothing about it. I got in touch with her, so that it's, you have no idea, when you do these things, where they go. And I know that Naomi can relate to that. But one of my favorite stories involved an email that Sharlande received in 2020 during the COVID lockdown from a young woman named Katie Langston, who was at that time a Lutheran intern in Minnesota. Now she's a pastor in Utah. Langston wrote this: Reverend Sledge, I found your email address by Googling you. I hope this reaches you. Several years ago, my pastoral internship supervisor found a copy of your poem, Waiting, in a hospital waiting room. It did not have your name attached, but it made such an impact on him that he kept it with him and refers to it often after several years. This year, as we were preparing a virtual Advent service, he sent it to me as something to incorporate in the liturgy. I ended up creating a liturgical video with the text. I credited it to author unknown, as it was at the time unknown to us. But then it occurred to me to do a Google search of some of the text, see if I could find the author, and there you were. Anyway, I would like to ask your permission to use your poem in this way. I've updated the video to credit you. I'll tell you that many people in our congregation in Minnesota were deeply moved by it. Your words were so lovely, and it felt especially poignant at this time of COVID-19. Please just let me know. So Katie's Lutheran supervisor found Sharlande's poem Waiting in a hospital waiting room in Minnesota and kept it for years, finally having it turned into a really beautiful liturgical video. And if any of you want to see that video, just send me an email and I'll be happy to send you a link. This week, you all will receive an email with photos and a link to the video of this event. And it will also include comments about Sharlande from about 20 people who we have contacted. I won't take the time right now to read all of those, but let me read just a few passages. Buddy Powell. Sharlande has been the hands and face of Christ to this unique community of faith in so many ways it can only be described as providential. Karen Matkin. Sharlande is one of the three most influential persons in my life. She taught me about living Christ by example, and that simple presence is sometimes what you need to give others, and it's what they most need. Brett Younger. Among many other gifts, Sharlande has made me a better writer. We alternated columns in Lake Shorelines. She wrote poetry and quoted Mary Oliver. I knew I could write limericks and quote Dave Barry. Sharlande loves the written word and taught me to love it too. Carol Younger. If you want to ensure that your children experience the best spiritual formation that churches offer, introduce them to Sharlande's Helping Hands and Bridge Builders. Then you can watch them love God, neighbors, and self in new ways. Sharlande taught the Youngers well. Rachel and Mike Scheretti. Sharlande taught us lessons that shaped our ministries. 1, the sacred is found in the ordinary. 2, give a blessing whenever you can. 3, there is room for everyone. 4, keep in touch with friends. 5, stay open and responsive to both the joy and the pain of the world. And 6, every person is a beloved child of God, full of promise and light. Don Sorrell, and if Don were reading this, I'm on the edge of tears right now, and Don would be beyond the edge of tears if he were reading this, as some of you know. For 38 years, I've been associated with Lakeshore. Sharlande has been the one constant spiritual leader. Hers has been the unwavering vision of seeing the multitude of needs in our community and around the world, and of seeing the opportunity and ways to serve. Hers is an example of a life dedicated to helping each of us become better people and better followers of our Lord. Marty Sauter, who is here. Sharlande's been the caring angel that checked on Vern and our family every evening in his final health battle. I'm getting choked up. She listened, gave support, prayed over the telephone for our family. I love her dearly. Sandy Londos. Sharlande is the first person I call when my spirit is weary or my heart aches. Often she calls before I know that I need her. She listens with her heart, puts Christ's love into action, and is my example of how to be like Jesus. In 39 years, I've never heard her say anything bad about anyone ever. She listens, shows up, offers comfort, sends cards, which her mother did. She learned that one. Her mother wrote thank you cards every day at the end of the day. Brings food, praise, and models patience and acceptance. As chair of the search committee that brought her to LSBC, I know it was my finest role. Finally, Nathan Stone. When we worked as a pastoral team at Lakeshore in the early 90s, I could always depend on Sharlande. In making hospital visits, I would be at someone's bedside and look up to see family and friends, but mostly I would see Sharlande with kindness and concern on her face. What a joy to witness her pastoral presence. She made my life and job so much easier. If there's a pastoral hall of fame, I vote for her. So we're here first to honor Sharlande Sledge and to thank her for all that she's done and all that she continues to do. Secondly, as you know, we're honored to have with us today a wonderful author and human being, Naomi Shihab Nye, who has traveled from her home in San Antonio and from her participation just yesterday in the Humanities Texas Festival in Austin. I'll have more to say about Naomi a few minutes from now. And last but not least, we're here to honor the memory of Deborah Harris, whose legacy gift to Lakeshore made this art series and many of our other programs possible. Please read the bio of Deborah on the back of your printed program. Deborah was a wonderful lyricist, poet, and musician, and she would absolutely love to know that we are honoring her beloved Sharlande today with a reading by Naomi Shihab Nye in a series that carries her, Deborah's, name. I want to believe that Deb is out there enjoying this event somewhere in some heavenly streaming service. Bill and Libby Bellinger, together with Gail Boyd, have known Sharlande longer than just about anybody else who's in this room right now, because Sharlande and the Bellingers were together at Broadway Baptist more than 40 years ago when they all lived in Fort Worth. So now I want to call on Libby to say a few words. There's Libby.
Well, the words Steve has read, I collected, and I found them overwhelming in their beauty about Sharlande. But in 1984, when we joined Lakeshore Baptist Church and we heard that they were looking for a children's minister, we knew no other better Pied Piper of children than Sharlande Sledge. And she indeed embraced our children, not just Jillian and Chip, but all of our children, and, as Carol said, led them on wonderful memories of missions and ministry and adventure. She even took them to art museums. And our son, Chip, at the Western Art Museum in Fort Worth, came up to Sharlande and said, "Are there any Van Goghs in this museum?" And Sharlande said, "Well, no, it's Western art." And he said, "Well, it's not a very good museum then." But Sharlande has also been a pioneer in the area of women in ministry, and that's why I have been part of why I was asked to speak. She won the Mentor Award, the Frankie Huff Granger Distinguished Mentor Award that was given by Women in Ministry, because she has influenced so many young women through this congregation and mentored them, probably like Rachel Shreddy, but mentored them into the ministries they have experienced in their lives. And I want to read the words from Doris Ann Cooper. Sharlande was a trailblazer as a woman in ministry before she even knew it. I imagine she is very humble about this, but she was ordained at Lakeshore Baptist Church. She was responding to a call, responding to a church that offered her a place to serve, living out her gifts of words and care. But she made the road more smooth, gentled it for others so that they could move into their own callings, and nourished gifts in them they had yet to recognize in themselves. Thanks be to God for Sharlande Sledge and all the ways she has changed us for good.
So now it's my honor to introduce our speaker for the day, Naomi Shihab Nye. A brief summary of her biography is provided in your printed program, so I will not read all of that to you. Now, the program doesn't tell you some things, though, and in particular, it doesn't tell you how Sharlande and Naomi got acquainted about 23 years ago. Sharlande had traveled to San Antonio to visit a friend who was in a hospital. So she was in a hospital waiting room, just like the Minnesota waiting room where her poem was found. When it occurred to Sharlande that she was in San Antonio, the home of one of her favorite authors, whom she had never met. So she looked in the phone book, for those of you who can remember what a telephone book was. She looked in the phone book, and this is also back when long distance, you would get to another town and you'd think, who do I know here? Because it was a local call. And so she was in San Antonio and she realized that one of her favorite authors was in town. So she looked in the phone book and found Naomi Nye's name and just called her. And so that became the beginning of a friendship that has continued to this day. Years later, Sharlande's friend Nancy Wingo, who is represented here today, with whom Sharlande traveled twice to Gaza, Nancy gave Sharlande a cookbook of Palestinian food written by Aziz Shihab, Naomi Nye's father, who came to the United States as a refugee. I should mention that Naomi has another Lakeshore connection. In 2015, our own Cassie Burleson was one of the editors of a book, Her Texas, Story, Image, Poem, and Song, which was an anthology of great work by Texas female artists, and Naomi had 4 poems in that volume. It was launched in a beautiful event at Armstrong Browning Library that several of us attended. So in summary, I just want to say that Naomi Nye has been awarded and recognized by just about every literary society that you can imagine. Again, if you read the list on the back in your printed program, you will see that. Tricia Springstub said it well in a review in the Cleveland Plain Dealer. Like happiness itself, Naomi's poems steal up on us and take us by surprise. They encourage listening to nature, to other voices, and to the whispers of our own hearts. Without ever being heavy-handed, the poems encourage readers to turn away from life's endless distractions and attend to the timeless. Brimming with affection, wit, and optimism, these are poems we truly need right now. So please join me in welcoming Naomi Shihab Nye to Waco and to Lakeshore Baptist.
Thank you all so much for your friendliness and your beauty and your love for Sharlande. My thanks to everyone here, everyone who spoke. I feel definitely as if we're calling people out of phone books. We're on a first name basis. So thanks to Nick and Steve and Sharlande and Libby and all the wonderful people I met at Don and Christie's house last night. And being at Lakeshore just feels like a dream to me because you are such a loving community. And I have known this through knowing Sharlande. Poets are always in the hope of connection. Wherever we are, whoever contacts us, we feel hopeful that some connection that is meaningful might be made. And Sharlande has always been that kind of person in my life. I actually felt as if we'd met 45 years ago, not 23. I feel as if I've known you all my adult life, but that's what you inspire in people you're in touch with, and you make us feel at home. A memory that I have is when my father died in Dallas. Somehow Sharlande heard about it. I have no idea how you even knew. I emailed you. I didn't even remember using email at the time. But she was there standing in front of their house with a jar full of the most delicious tomato soup I have ever tasted in my life. And it was just a moment when you really needed a friend to bring soup. She has also managed to offer words in the most gentle and unobtrusive and intuitive way. One year when things were very difficult, and I don't even know what specifically was difficult, she sent me a tiny card on which she had handwritten, "All is calm." And I had that card posted over my sink where I do the dishes for a few years until it faded in the light. It was just such a beautiful reminder. I feel as if Sharlande is a born encourager, isn't she? An encourager and an enthusiast and a loving connector. Somebody once said to me, I thought this was the most flattering thing. She said, "You're like a switchboard." Remember switchboards? Like those things you punch the wires in the old-fashioned telephone connections. And I do feel as if Sharlande has been that in everyone's lives, and in my life too, connecting me to people like Nancy Wingo or other friends that she knew, friends of hers in San Antonio, and her own words. Just last week, she sent me Living in the Light. What a perfect moment to be reading Living in the Light. And I'm following along day by day, Sharlande, and I thank you for your beautiful stories in this book. But I just wanted to open from today's entry, A Prayer for Peace, O God of tender mercies, we pray that you will lead us in a pursuit of peace that leaves no stone unturned, not in ourselves, not in our world. May peace, wholeness, calmness, shalom, salams, keep us grounded in your presence, for the holy, peaceful moments of our hearts are a prelude to a more peaceful future. Thank you, Sharlande, for every prayer you share, every word you say. Furthermore, knowing you has just felt fun. You're a fun person. And as my editor often says to me, I'm reminding us just to have a little more fun right now. And I think we do need to remind each other of that in our adult world. Unless we're spending a lot of time with children, thankfully they will always remind us to have fun and try to have more fun. But many times we need our adult friends to do that too, and you are one of those people, Sharlande. Thank you, you're a blessing. To be invited here today, I don't think I paused 1 second when you invited me, did I? I wanted to come. Whatever else was happening, I wanted to be here, to meet you all, to see Lakeshore, and to thank Sharlande for all she has been to so many of us. And I marvel at your writing. You know, we savor other people's good writing. It just feeds us, as Cafe Cappuccino did this morning with the best pancake in Texas. I'll stand up for that pancake anywhere. Your writing feeds us, and I thank you for knowing what we need when we need it. And look at all these people you have done that with. So thank you for inviting me to be here today. I am humbled by this invitation, and I know I'm striking terror into people's hearts by having this many books next to me. But don't worry, poems are short. This is just in case I wanted to grab one of them and read something from that book. I won't be reading you all these things. I actually wanted to start with a few things from other people, because you are a person who savors other people's writing and urges them to pay attention and collect it. So yesterday I gave Sharlande a little book that I recently received in the mail from another lifetime friend of mine, Kim Stafford of Oregon. And this is called A Proclamation for Peace. And it's one poem that he has had translated into 116, I think it is, world languages. Because he feels like the most important thing right now in our world is to all speak together globally about how much we need to keep making peace. On the cover of this book is a photograph by my husband, Michael Nye, in San Antonio. And if any of you want to know more about his work, he has a little podcast you can look at, michaelnye.org. But I'm just going to read the one poem by Kim Stafford, A Proclamation for Peace. Whereas the world is a house on fire, whereas the nations are filled with shouting, whereas hope seems small, sometimes a single bird on a wire left by migration behind, whereas kindness is seldom in the news and peace an abstraction while war is real, whereas words are all I have, whereas my life is short, whereas I am afraid, whereas I am free, despite all fire and anger and fear. Be it therefore resolved, a song shall be my calling, a song not yet made shall be vocation, and peaceful words the work of my remaining days. Well, Sharlande, peaceful words have always been your work, and thank you for extravagantly sharing them with all of us. And then I found a poem by someone I was privileged to know. Does anyone here recognize the name Ursula Le Guin? Great writer. Ursula and I used to teach at this summer camp for women in Oregon, in the wilderness along a rushing river. And so I got to listen to her speak, and I really loved her poetry. And I don't recall ever seeing this poem before, but somehow I found it in my file cabinet, and I just felt, since it was a retirement, quote, celebration, this fit the moment, by Ursula Le Guin. Leaves. Years do odd things to identity. What does it mean to say, I am that child in the photograph at Kishhamesh in 1935? Might as well say, I am the shadow of a leaf of the acacia tree, felled 70 years ago, moving on the page the child reads. Might as well say, I am the words she read, or the words I wrote in other years, flicker of shade and sunlight as the wind moves through the leaves. Isn't that a nice poem? I love that. Years, identities. I was just reading an interview with someone, and they said, so you've just turned 90. And she said, oh, I don't care. I still am 14. I've always been 14 in my spirit. And I really related to that. Because I've actually been working longer than you, Sharlande, and we were born 12 days apart. So, no, not working longer than you, but I mean, we're the same age exactly, 2 weeks apart, 12 days apart. And so if you're retiring, what does that say to me? I mean, I need to be retiring. No, you won't retire. You'll continue to do your writing, your work. You'll be here for everyone. And just in the spirit of the future, I want to thank you for the child that will always be in you and will always be holding you up and holding up everyone who knows you. Thank you. Couple other comments. Recently, I went to a memorial service for a dear friend of mine, Dr. Lucille Santos, in San Antonio, and the pastor said, this is how he began, there will be only one question on the final exam paper. How did you treat your neighbor? And then he went on to talk about how beloved Lucille had treated everyone with kindness, with respect, how she had helped us all wherever we knew her from. And I just think that's a really important thing to bring up at this moment. And also a quote from one of my heroes, who's at this moment only 17 years old, but I've been following her since she was 7. She was the reason I joined Facebook, so I could look at what she posted. A little girl, Jannah Jihad Ayad, who lives in Palestine in the West Bank. And I dedicate my book, The Tiny Journalist, to her. And if you ever want some inspiration, look her up. Or also, if you want another point of view on whatever's in the news, look her up. But Jannah recently did a little talk with a friend of hers from the Sudan, and it was posted on Instagram, and she just kept saying over and over, hope is a form of resistance. So if people get mad at you because you're not resisting enough or speaking out enough about something you don't approve of, just stay hopeful, because you are doing work by remaining hopeful. And that is something that has helped me in my own life, because I am so often dismayed by the news. I am heartbroken by violence that involves children. They didn't do anything to deserve it. I am heartbroken by people not living up to their best selves. When I was a child, that's the phrase my mother sent us off to school with, be your best self. And I used to walk to school thinking, what is that exactly? What does that self do? Was I my best self yesterday? Could I be a better self? But many times when I read a news story, my first thought is, oh, that's not your best self. You could have done better than that. Come on. And we need to keep our spirits up. And I think being our best selves, trying again, hope as a form of resistance can help us. And then I picked up another book by my father called Does the Land Remember Me? A Memoir of Palestine. And I want to read a poem by Wendell Berry that I found tucked in this book, because this reminds me of Sharlande too. Radiances know him. Grown lighter than breath, he is set free in our remembering. Grown brighter than vision, he goes dark into the life of the hill that holds his peace. He's hidden among all that is and cannot be lost. I think it must be a poem, maybe you sent it to me, that helped me at the time of my father's death, and I tucked it in this book and had never seen it again till I was thinking of coming here today. So just a few words about my life as a poet. I started writing when I was 6. I fell in love with the sound of poetry. My mother read me Emily Dickinson when I was 3. When I interrogated her about that years later, wasn't Emily Dickinson a little hard for a 3-year-old? She said, well, the poems were short, and you seemed to like them. So it was easier than reading you a longer book like Charlotte's Web or something, because then you'd say, oh, read it again, read it again. But if you asked me to read you an Emily Dickinson poem again, I could do that. And you'd go to sleep, and they seemed to make you peaceful. I did love her then. I love her forever and read her poems forever, and a few years ago had the chance to actually hold one of her real pages in my hands at a rare book room in Massachusetts. Just as this past summer, I had a chance in Austin to hold Walt Whitman's own writing notebook when he was working on one of the many drafts of Leaves of Grass in my hands. You know, you can go do that for free at the HRC in Austin. It was a life-changing experience to actually look at his handwriting and be holding it. But Emily, I feel like she has been with me since I was 3 as a muse, a mentor. Hope is the thing with feathers. I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? I understood that when I was 3. So I was already in love with poetry. When I was 6, I learned how to write. When I was 7, the school librarian told me I could send my poems to magazines. And that's how I became a writer. And she said, will you be sad if your poem is not printed? You might have to send out 20 before one is ever printed. And I said, I won't be sad. I have 28. I'll be fine. I'll be good. It'll be okay. I've never been too sad about something not being printed, because my feeling is always, well, if you didn't share it, nothing could ever be printed. So why not just let it go out? I worked with kids for the last 50 years, since I got out of Trinity University in San Antonio. My life-changing teacher, although I was a religion major, I studied world religions, was always fascinated by religion because I had such ecumenical, open-minded parents. My life-changing teacher was Robert Flynn, who came to Trinity from Baylor. And Bob and I are still friends. We go out for Thai food about every 2 weeks. And he told me about a job that was open through the Texas Commission on the Arts in Austin. So I went to Austin straight away without a vita, without a CV curriculum, and without a single poem, and applied for the job. And they hired me. So that speaks not too well for all of our naivete in those days. But they hired me, and it's still the work I do 50 years later, working with students wherever I can. Students of all ages, in all kinds of schools, private, public, parochial, international, also in detention centers, in prisons, in hospitals for mental health, all kinds of places I've worked in my days, museums, and it's been such a privilege. And poetry has been everywhere I ever went. And I just want to say, before I read any poems, I am feeling so happy for Waco, because walking around this morning, I felt poetry on so many corners here. A few conversations I had downtown, images, little photographs we take with our phones now, beauty, places being revived, just history, historical markers. I just felt really excited to be in Waco. So thank you all for letting me come back and see your wonderful community and be here today. So a couple of poems to start. How many of you in here have ever sent your work out worried how it would be received? Has anyone ever done that? A few people? Okay. Well, sometimes it is a little bit scary, but it's still worth doing. So I thought, just to make you feel better, I would read you first a poem called Editorial Suggestions. And by the way, you're a great editor, Sharlande, because I just feel like when you send out your work, whatever I read by you, it's just perfectly tuned. There's never an extra word in it. Or is someone else editing her, or is she doing it for herself? Steve, is Steve editing you? Well, whoever's doing it, you all work well together. So I've worked with the same editor. Her name is Virginia Duncan. She lives in Connecticut, works in New York City. I've never had a publishing agent, but I feel very lucky to work with the same editor for 10 years. And I tell kids, I know how you feel when you get comments on your papers, because sometimes it stings a little bit, and you have to take a deep breath and walk away and then come back and say, okay, I'll try to make this better. But how would you feel if your editor were 10 years younger than you are? If your teacher were, then you might feel a little more insulted. No. So these are actual quotes. Every line in this poem is an actual quote from my editor to me. So we have to just be tough. We have to be resilient. Just take it. So this was when I was working on a book of mine, a novel for kids called The Turtle of Oman. Oman is one of my favorite Middle Eastern countries. Your narrator needs to sound older. What is he, 8? Could he be more sophisticated? Does he have attention issues? Do you know who he is? This book feels a bit adrift. Give us a handle. We need to walk on that beach. Does this make sense? Your time is all over the map. Is this happening in 3 weeks? 1 week? Do you know where we are? What is this book really about? Details drive the action. Don't report on them. Lead us on, but put a harness on every chapter. The fishing chapter? They could really catch a fish. I mean, why not? The boy's personality needs to be clearer. He can't be coy. What is his name again? We need to fall in love with him. I'm not sure I even like him. We need more excitement. Maybe you could have a stone in every chapter. Let the stone be the centerpiece. Would that work? This book will be great. So every now and then, even when your criticism is coming in hard and fast, she throws in a sentence like, this book will be great, just to keep you going. The Turtle of Oman did come out, and it was adopted by the state of North Carolina for something called The Little Read. It was turned into a play. All the third graders in North Carolina were given a free copy, and it had a great life. And the kids forced me to write the sequel, which is called The Turtle of Michigan. So anyway, I just thought for your perfect editing, Sharlande. So because you are a bridge builder, a global soul, this is called Because You Can. My Jewish friends are kind and gentle. Not one of them would harm another person, even if they didn't know that person. My Arab friends are kind and gentle. Not one of them would harm another person, even if they didn't know that person. They might press you to drink 45 small cups of coffee or tea, but that would be all. My Jewish friends have never taken my house, my land, herded me into a cell, tortured me, cut down my tree. Never once. My Arab friends have never built a bomb. We respect each other as equals. We look somewhat alike. We laugh similarly. We have never said the other should not exist. So where is the problem exactly? Let's be specific. Who and where and what is the problem exactly? You have to know before you can fix it. So it's always a little bit of a wild card, picking the poems you're going to read in a special place. But I hope you like some of these. For your hospitality last night and today, and as a church community, because, I've been reading things about this church for a long time, thanks to my friend and other friends who have come here. And so I feel like your hospitality is really a calling card at Lakeshore. Red brocade. The Arabs used to say, when a stranger appears at your door, feed him for 3 days before asking who he is, where he's come from, where he's headed. That way, he'll have strength enough to answer. Or, by then, you'll be such good friends, you don't care. Let's go back to that. Rice, pine nuts. Here, take the red brocade pillow. My child will serve water to your horse. No, I was not busy when you came. I was not preparing to be busy. That's the armor everyone put on to pretend they had a purpose in the world. I refuse to be claimed. Your plate is waiting. We will snip fresh mint into your tea. I had the feeling from what you said, Steve, about Sharlande, that if anyone has come to you over the years with a need, with a problem, with someone sick, you would be there for them. I just feel that, and you've always been that way for me. So that's especially for your hospitality. And do you all know that teenagers in other countries, from Japan, China, to France, England, Scotland, a lot of places I've worked in schools, they all have a big stereotype of Americans that we are always busy. And they've all asked me about this. And I didn't realize this was the international stereotype of our country. And it's not a negative one necessarily, but they're curious about it. Why are Americans so busy? A teenager in France actually asked the question this way. And it really caused me to think of that word differently, and I threw it out of my personal vocabulary about 25 years ago because I decided it didn't help me. It didn't help us live to think of ourselves as busy. It doesn't give you a good feeling. It gives you a swirly feeling, which is not such a good feeling. So whenever anyone says, I know you're so busy, but you will really shock them if you say, no, I'm not. Then they look at you like, what's wrong with you? And they forget what they were getting ready to ask you to do. So try it, it's very helpful. But anyway, a French student said, is it true that in the United States, American teenagers are too busy to have tea and a piece of pie every day at 4 o'clock? And I said, well, I don't know if American teenagers are really that interested in tea and a piece of pie at 4 o'clock, but it sounds really good. Could we do that? I just thought that was a touching way to ask a question and to realize they're worried about us. We're too busy in this country. Do we want to have that reputation? Or do we want to be people of calm hospitality? What do we want to be? Well, I actually have a poem. I'm not sure if I should read this or not, but I just wanted to tell you that I wrote it. It's called A Few Questions for Bashar Assad. And so I want to say that I hope for better days for the people of beautiful Syria. Syria was one of my husband's and my favorite countries to travel in repeatedly. We've known so many kind souls in Syria. Artists who have disappeared, we don't know what's happened to them. People who grew up there, whether they're Palestinian to begin with, or Lebanese to begin with, or Syrian by background, or Iranian, or whatever they are. Let's all just say a prayer of hope for that country in this moment of tumult and celebration from what the news says. Anyway, but I did write that poem years ago after being there and worrying. So a couple from my newest book called Grace Notes, which is poems I wrote after my mom died. When I was a child, this person who read poetry to me said, well, it's nice that you write so many things of your own, but don't write about me, okay? And she claimed to be shy, which was never true. But at the time she was feeling her life get shorter, she said to me, well, you wrote a book for your dad after he died. Are you going to write one for me? So Grace Notes was born. And it started out as poems from my mother. It was a beautiful way, as any of you have discovered, if you have written about a loved one after they die, just so you'll remember details of conversations and experiences. It's definitely a way to keep the conversation going and feel as if you're still getting together with them actively, and sometimes they answer. And it's a gift. So people have asked me, well, was it sad? Because I started working on this book literally the day after she died on Thanksgiving 3 years ago. It wasn't sad working on it. It was happy. It was joyous, and it was a constant discovery. And then it ended up being poems about families, because you can't just write about your mother. She didn't exist in isolation. She was connected to everyone else, and the people who came before her, too. But I'll just read you two from this book. Legacy. And my mother was from a German-Swiss background and grew up in St. Louis. My whole life would not have happened without a man whose name I do not know, who died in snow. He was young, had been married only 3 months to my mama's best friend. Walking on a wintry path in Kansas, he toppled into a snowbank, dead. That's it, all the information. When he died so suddenly, my mama moved to the town where his young bride lived to console her for a few months as she got over the shock. Her friend had a job, so my future mama got a temporary job selling sewing machines and a volunteer job in a hospital where she met my dad, who had just landed from the other side of the world. See? The snowbank, the poor frozen man. I owe him everything. And every one of us has something quirky in our legacy like that. I mean, you may think you know how everybody got together, who they were, what they did, but there is some little twist somewhere. Maybe it was with your great-grandparents or your great-great-grandparents, but some little oddity. They moved to that house instead of that house, or you wouldn't be here. Such a miracle. So as it says on the back of this book, the fact we exist at all is a random grace note of a forgotten symphony. Sides of the family. Grandmothers stretching back. When do they click into focus? Think how many you really had. Picture them lined to the horizon. One of my grandmothers prayed 5 times a day, talked to donkeys and cats as if they were people, laughed wildly, urging everyone to bring her soft new sweaters, was a widow 50 years, gave advice if you asked or even didn't. When night fell too long, lay still on her back and prayed for the cold darkness and the hopeful days, never bitter despite being a refugee. How would you like to lose your house? She climbed a wooden ladder to the roof, believed in the sunset, ate yogurt and cucumbers, feared socks, said socks make us weak, wore a white hijab, lived to 106, always seemed young. The other one, on this side of the planet, tugged on nylon stockings, laced black shoes, kept hands tightly folded in her lap, never missed church, brought me secret desserts, and a giant doll who opened and closed her eyes. I had asked for the doll. This grandma had fluffy white hair, grumpy husband, dark apartment. Rode buses, stared into department store windows. Didn't mention Bavaria, where her ancestors came from. Always seemed old. Often said, never mind. These grandmas did not meet, but I think there were little lines between them, like dotted ripples in a star constellation diagram. Big Dipper, Small Dipper, they both shone down on us all our lives. They were constants. I've never read that poem out loud. I just wanted to bring both of them into this space because they both would have cherished Sharlande. They're your kind of people, both of them, in different ways. And one last one from this book. I often have told kids, if they're stuck writing, just start with something in the room. And they'll often look at me blankly and say, what's in the room? I'll say, well, there are a lot of things in the room. There's hundreds of things in the room. Look around. And then if they're still stuck, my tactic was always to drag the trash can near their desk and say, write about this. And invariably, that poem would turn out to be the best one in the class. Because we all have histories with trash cans. And they would laugh, and the other kids would be curious. Well, what are they going to write? And the other thing I would say to them, and also many of them would not know that I ended up writing an entire book about trash and picking it up myself. So it's not an insult to write about trash. It's actually really interesting. And you're doing a good job in Waco. You don't have much. There's not much trash downtown. And I live downtown San Antonio and pick it up every day. You're doing a lot better. But the other thing I would tell kids is just write about your name. When they'd say, what? Well, how many words can you find in your name? Or turn your name inside out, or why do you have that name, or where did your name come from? And they would always end up with the best poem also. So here's a little humble poem I wrote about my name and my mother's name. My mom, Miriam Naomi. Her first name meant bitter. How could anyone enjoy a name like that? It's biblical, her parents said, but she never liked it. Later, she passed on her middle name to me. Naomi, also biblical, means pleasant, used against me when I was a grouch. Good luck, it was also my father's dead sister's name, so it belonged to both of them. But did it belong to me? At 12, I discovered Naomi, backward, was I moan. This helped everybody. Sharlande, I have to read a couple of poems for Gaza, the place we have both been and care about a lot. And the children there are so beautiful. I look at them every day. They are amazing children in both Gaza and Palestine. Children all over this world are amazing. It's not their fault, whatever politics their grown-ups have done. And same in this country, my grandson keeps reminding me. Moon over Gaza. I am lonely for my friends. They liked me, trusted my coming. I think they looked up at me more than other people do. I, who have been staring down so long, see no reason for the sorrows humans make. I dislike the scuffle of bombs blasting very much. It blocks my view. A landscape of grieving feels different afterwards. Different sheen from a simple desert, rubble of walls, silent children who once said my name like a prayer. Sometimes I am bigger than a golden plate, a giant coin, and everyone gasps. Maybe it is wrong that I am so calm. And this is called, and I feel also grief in the past year especially for all of the initiatives for which people worked so hard to bring Palestinian and Israeli people together. Sharlande knows about a lot of them. There are schools, there are whole villages, there is an orchestra, there are many projects that tried to belong to everybody. And I feel as if war and weapons have insulted all this good work. So this is called separation wall, because war just ends up making more people be separated. Actually, I didn't want to read too many sad things today, so I didn't bring a lot of my newest poems, which many are about Gaza. There's one called Beautiful Gaza, about taking a bus all the way from the Sinai in Egypt all the way up through Gaza. And my husband had malaria, and he was lying in the back seat of the bus. And all people would get on the bus, and before they got off, they would be back there wiping his brow, stroking his forehead, trying to offer him water. And I kept thinking, how many of us would go up to a person in public who looks this ill and be this kind on the spot, unless we were a doctor or a nurse? But the people of Gaza have had very, very kind and generous hearts, and they love their strawberry gardens. Separation wall. When the milk is sour, it separates. The next time you stop speaking, ask yourself why you were born. They say they are scared of us. The nuclear bomb is scared of the cucumber. When my mother asks me to slice cucumbers, I feel like a normal person with fantastic dilemmas. Do I make rounds or sticks? Shall I trim the seeds? I asked my grandmother if there was ever a time she felt like a normal person every day, not in danger. And she thinks for as long as it takes a sun to set and says, yes, I always feel like a normal person. They just don't see me as one. We would like the babies not to find out about the failures waiting for them. I would like them to believe on the other side of the wall is a circus that just hasn't opened yet. Our friends learning how to juggle, to walk on tall poles. One time when I was in St. Louis, I actually got to have coffee with the co-founder of the Palestinian-Israeli circus. This is a real thing, they had it. And she said, well, the hardest part is being able to cross the wall to practice. Because, you know, if you're doing a trapeze act, you need to practice. You can't just go do it for the first time you meet. And that really stayed with me trapeze acts. It's all a trapeze act. So I'm going to close with two poems. One I am reading for Dr. Thomas Hanks, my new friend, my new favorite person in Waco besides Sharlande. It was such a treat to meet you last night. Thank you for the reading of a poem for Sharlande last night by your mutual friend. And he kindly commented on this poem of mine, so I wanted to read it here today for him. And out of all of my many poems connected to Gaza or Palestine, this is my favorite one too, so thank you for bringing it up. So I'll read that one, and then I'll read a lighter one to close. Before I was a Gazan, I was a boy, and my homework was missing. Paper with numbers on it, stacked and lined. I was looking for my piece of paper, proud of this plus that, then multiplied, not remembering if I had left it on the table after showing to my uncle or the shelf after combing my hair. But it was still somewhere, and I was going to find it and turn it in, make my teacher happy, make her say my name to the whole class before everything got subtracted in a minute. Even my uncle, even my teacher, even the best math student and his baby sister who couldn't talk yet. And now I would do anything for a problem I could solve. And I think kids really do feel that way these days. How do they solve it? How could they possibly solve it? And this will just take 1 minute to relocate this poem. I think mark it here. So Sharlande, I was just thinking of, you didn't have any requests, did you? I shouldn't. What? That was the one for Tom Hanks that I just read. Oh, you wanted that one? I do. Would you rather I would close with that one? Okay. I'll close with that then. Something else I was going to close with. I was going to close with the one Bono took on tour with him. No, but I won't. But I won't. But I can't find it anyway. No. Okay, I'll read this one, and then if you want, I'll read the Bono one if I can find it. Where is it? Because that one, I did feel like it's a little funny at the end, and also there's a sentence I want to connect to you. So I'll read this one, then one other. You can stand it? I think you're getting some good food afterwards. Okay. I don't want to wear you out here. Don't want to exhaust my welcome in Waco. Gate A4. So this is written as a prose poem, and it is absolutely nonfiction. Nothing was embroidered, and I wrote it down the night it happened so that I would get every detail correct. So it's written in prose. Wandering around the Albuquerque airport terminal, after learning my flight had been detained 4 hours, I heard an announcement. If anyone in the vicinity of gate A4 understands any Arabic, please come to the gate immediately. Well, one pauses these days. Gate A4 was my own gate. I went there. An older woman in full traditional Palestinian embroidered dress, just like my grandma wore, was crumpled to the floor, wailing. "Help," said the flight agent. "Talk to her. What is her problem? We told her the flight was going to be late, and she did this." I stooped to put my arm around the woman and spoke haltingly. "Shu dawa, shu biddak habibti, stanna shway, min fadlik, shu bitsawi." The minute she heard any words she knew, however poorly used, she stopped crying. She thought the flight had been canceled entirely. She needed to be in El Paso for major medical treatment the next day. I said, "You're fine. You'll get there. Who's picking you up? Let's call him." We called her son. I spoke with him in English, saying I would stay with his mother till we got on the plane. She talked to him. Then we called her other sons, just for fun. Then we called my dad, and he and she spoke for a while in Arabic and found out, of course, they had 10 shared friends. Then I thought, just for the heck of it, why not call some Palestinian poets I know and let them chat with her? This all took up 2 hours. She was laughing a lot by then, telling of her life, patting my knee, answering questions. She had pulled a sack of homemade mamoul cookies, little powdered sugar, crumbly mounds stuffed with dates and nuts, from her bag and was offering them to all the women at the gate. To my amazement, not a single woman declined. It was like a sacrament. The traveler from Argentina, the mom from California, the lonely woman from Laredo. We were all covered with the same powdered sugar and smiling. There is no better cookie. And then the airline broke out free apple juice from huge coolers, and 2 little girls from our flight ran around serving it, and they were covered with powdered sugar too. And I noticed my new best friend, by now we were holding hands, had a potted plant poking out of her bag, some medicinal thing with green furry leaves, such an old country traveling tradition. Always carry a plant, always stay rooted to somewhere. And I looked around that gate of late and weary ones and thought, this is the world I want to live in, the shared world. Not a single person in that gate, once the crying of confusion stopped, seemed apprehensive about any other person. They took the cookies. I wanted to hug all those other women too. This can still happen anywhere. Not everything is lost. It's for you. Thank you. I will close with that one. It just feels right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Naomi, I think that's the world we all want to live in, so thank you. Well, I want to thank several people for making this event, and that was just perfect, so thank you so much, Naomi. Another round here. I want to thank several people for making this event possible, but I should start with our pastor. Nick, where are you? He's over there. Our pastor, Nick Mumjian, who wrote an email to me almost exactly 1 year ago on December 15, 2023, that said in part, "Hello, Steve. I know this won't be for some time, but I want to get on the Harris Art Team's radar the idea of a celebration next December, a year from now, for Sharlande. Maybe we can invite Naomi Shihab Nye to offer readings. Just some initial thoughts I wanted to share before my mind gets cluttered," he said. So thank you, Nick. We did it. And we couldn't have done this without a lot of help from Christy and Don Sorrell, other partners in crime here, Kay Bailey and her sort of village of people who have pulled the food together that we're about to have. Louis Garcia, who set this room up for us after church, and many others. And of course, Sharlande herself, who is the ultimate event planner. And so you'd like to organize an event for Sharlande without talking to Sharlande about organizing the event, but you just can't do that. So, and now, Sharlande, if you will please come forward. We have a few presentations to make. And so, Alice and Patty, if you'll also come up. I think it's fine. This way.
quilt.
Very small quilt.
Say that, yeah.
It's not, that's a very small quilt, not really. Okay, she needs to open it up. This is for the ultimate encourager. When I first came to Lakeshore, I became aware of the prayer shawl ministry. And I didn't know anybody, I didn't know who to go to or how to proceed to make that something of mission. And someone said, go to Sharlande. And so she is the ultimate encourager. So
Thank you, I'm not the knitter.
this is full of, every stitch has prayers of thanksgiving for all she's done for this church and hold us together through a lot of time and stress, and lots of prayers of praise for her presence and her just being her.
Thank you. There are many people here who do not know me, so I'll just simply say that I have worn many hats in my life. Right now, I wear the hat of a wife and a grandmother, and it's wonderful to have my granddaughter spend over a month, really nearly 2 months with us. Another hat I used to wear was that of a teacher. For 19 years, I taught at University High School, and those were wonderful years. As soon as I retired, though, I decided that I was going to fulfill a wish or a promise that I had made myself. I've sewed ever since I was a little girl, when I would sit outside under a cedar tree and make doll clothes. And then later on, I learned how to make my own clothes, and I made clothes for my 2 daughters and even my son. I made a few t-shirts for him. But as soon as I retired from teaching, I decided that I was going to become a quilter. I'd always wanted to make a quilt and never had. So I did. I made many quilts. I've not counted how many, but many of them hang in my house, but many more have been gifts, birthdays, anniversaries, quilts for new babies, wedding quilts, and so on. Well, about a year ago, I collected together a lot of purple fabrics, thinking that I have a special friend who loves purple. And so I wanted to make a purple quilt for Sharlande Sledge. So that's what I have done, and I have waited until this occasion to present this quilt to my dear friend, Sharlande Sledge. Let's see. Yeah, this is upside down.
This is upside down.
Yeah, here.
Oh, so that's the hang.
So for Sharlande, a purple quilt.
Got all the height in here.
We want to have photos of you with this.
That is pure Alice Beard, gorgeous.
With much love.
This is pure Alice Baird, gorgeous. It is, and you know it, and we'll hang it somewhere. It's perfect purple since it's Advent, so.
What a holy moment.
Christie.
That's not for you to sit in. So when, because Sharlande did have her finger on different parts of this event, I asked her, I said, so what are you going to do after you retire? And Sharlande said, I'll tell you what, I remember exactly. She said, I want to travel to see friends and family, and at some point, I want to get another dog. And so, this is to start you on your journey.
Oh, this is a dog here.
Well, that's a good question, right?
There's a dog in here.
So we can't let Sharlande travel with an empty suitcase, right? So we want her to have and take along a few of her favorite things to share her world with others. Where would she be without a scarf? And you can put your things in your suitcase. Yeah, you want to? Yeah.
I think I know
That's a
what that
Monet
is.
print.
That's warm.
To keep you warm on the plane.
This is from the expert traveler these days.
And where would Sharlande be without sharing food? We now know food is very important when you travel. And so these are some Palestinian, Middle Eastern spices.
Oh. Green harissa. Oh, this comes from Carrie Mackin. It's a taste of Morocco. Chicken kebab or kebab is, as Nancy would say. Oh. Wonderful, wonderful.
But what do you do with Middle Eastern spices? You must take along a Palestinian cookbook.
This looks wonderful. Yeah. Have you seen this?
You're all invited to her first meal out of her cookbook. So some things we don't want to cook, but we do want to share with others. And Sharlande has been a real fan of babka bread.
Oh, but the first of the season.
There you go. And should she wish, she can add some jams. Let's see what we have here. We have blueberry sumac and lemon saffron and cherry chai jam.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, somebody had fun.
So
shopping.
if you kind of get it, it's all kind of Middle Eastern. Yes. because Sharlande will meet friends along her travels, she will want to bring along one of her books to share with people and to give away as she travels. And then she's going to need a writing journal along the way. And I have no doubt that Sharlande will fill that with many beautiful words that touch our hearts all the time, but will be for her. You're welcome. Thank you. Someone mentioned note cards. Sharlande writing lots of cards. Was it your mother? Your mother.
No, mother.
Your mother that wrote cards all the time. And if you haven't received a card from Sharlande, you should go up to her and say, it's my turn for a card. And so here's a package of cards on your travels.
Those are cute cards.
So most important, along the way, as she's done her travels, at some point, she's going to have a little dog with a chew toy and a leash ready to join in new colors, your new colors. Well, you know, it might just be small.
Rachel Barris over there, when Rachel dressed up as me with my dog Whimsy, but my dog wasn't alive, it was a stuffed dog. That was a trunk or treat, yes, and when Doris Ann was preaching one time. I think that's a beautiful color. Yes.
Your new color, I heard. So Sharlande, there's another suitcase but I didn't bring them both. I'm not filling them both today. Yes.
And Pastor Nick.
So instead of my normal 15-minute homily, the Pope gave this past week a decree of homilies of only 8 minutes. And so for the next 8 minutes, I hope you will just bear with me as I pontificate upon the word and who Sharlande is. I'm just kidding. But in all seriousness, I have here a representation of the love offering that we have been collecting and receiving that we wish to give to you to show just a small token of our appreciation. A love offering that we will continue to collect until December 31st, for those who are wondering. But yes, a love offering no less, that we are so grateful and appreciative of all that you have done. And I am so grateful for all that you have taught me and for your friendship, and I thank you.
You can have a seat. Oh, you can say.
Well, this is very short. Thank you so much for all these gifts. As Catherine Davenport used to tell me when I would pack a suitcase to go anywhere, she'd say, you know what your problem is? You're just interested in too many things. And Catherine always told it, and she would always say, this is a blank check inside. You can bring it back to us in 2 weeks and we'll fill out the check. So many of you remember Catherine, who was our administrative secretary, for a long time, office manager. I want to say thank you for the gifts, but mostly, I haven't gotten to talk to all of you, but thank you for being my extended family. We've created a whole lot of memories over 39 and a half years. And, I feel like I have lots and lots of brothers and sisters here, and some who've seemed like my grandchildren and grown-up children who were in helping hands in bridge builders, and we went on mission trips to New York and many other places. And I've learned so much, and I'm looking at Pam Allen, and we're surrounded by these Advent banners, which are part of all of our traditions, and thank you for being here this afternoon and all the moments of these years in between. Thank you.
Sharlande, there is one more surprise. Judy Prather, who seems to be even a worse pack rat than I am, Judy Prather somehow found a liturgy that was written 30 years ago and was read on your 10th anniversary at Lakeshore. And many of you have copies of that. Bill Bellinger is going to come forward and lead us in that liturgy and then a closing prayer, and then we'll move on to the reception.
Please join me in the responsive litany of gratitude. O God, you made us in your image, and you came to dwell among us. Each day of our lives, you bless and empower us. However, some days hold moments when we more clearly remember your deep, deep love and your great faithfulness. This is one of those moments. We pause now to reflect on your generous gifts to this congregation through your servant, Sharlande Sledge. She has given 40 years of her life here, always taking seriously her call to ministry and growth. Her presence in our lives has been both powerful and kind. With compassion and creativity, Sharlande has woven words and images, patterns, colors, and experiences into our community's fabric of faith. She has been teacher, enabler, visionary, and friend. She has been storyteller, stargazer, delight taker, proclaimer, and encourager. And we are better people because of her presence with us. As a fellow sojourner, Sharlande has modeled hospitality. She has encouraged us to extend our own tables and make room for those who seem different, to build bridges and to break down barriers. She has taught us to recognize you in the face of each person we meet. She has loved our children and reminded us that we are all children of the Lord, while helping us to savor small things like hot dogs, Christmas carols, and the color of the tulip. She has faithfully pointed our eyes and hearts toward you and those things of ultimate value. Grace upon grace you have poured upon us, O God, through your servant Sharlande. For these blessings and 10,000 beside, we offer our thanks. Help us to live as a graced and grateful people. Amen. And let us pray. Thanks be to you, O God, for the gift of Sharlande Sledge, a gift to this community of faith and to the broader Church of Jesus Christ. She embodies your creation, O God, and her call to ministry, with regular attention to the resources for ministry, poetry, music, art, texts, narratives, joined with care for persons and communities in need. She carries out her ministry with power and modesty as a fellow pilgrim of faith and offers to children, young people, and adults of all ages your life-transforming gospel. Thanks be to you, O God, for the life and ministry of Sharlande Sledge. We pray in the name of the Christ child to come in Advent. And now, for Sharlande and for all of us, receive this benediction. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make the divine face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord smile upon you and give you peace. Amen.
I thought before I retired I would at least be able to memorize this. You always, I don't know how many times I've called you to say.
Well, I'll tell you, I looked up again just to be sure.
I get counting.
I waited too long on calling Barnes & Noble, so all their positions are filled right now. But I'll probably be back at Brown Rock over the break. But I know my mom is going to be a lot better about it with me, but we're going to try to be up here sometime next semester and get up. Yeah, there's nowhere you can come sneak up on me yet. But hopefully I'm back at Barnes & Noble next semester.
I hope so. Well, next semester's not very long away.
January, middle of January is when it starts.
Yeah. So, what'd you do in the summer?
This summer I worked, I did research at Baylor, so
Everybody was here.
yeah, I stayed here over the summer. It was a lot of fun. But it's kind of spoiled me now, and I don't retail jobs all seem boring to me now, because I got to sit there and get paid to do something I'm super interested in, and I was like, whoa. And everything else feels so insignificant now.
Yeah, we got some pretty significant interests, skills too.
I know everybody's sneaking in. I know. She has to go too. Yeah, she has to go. I just wanted to give you a real quick hug. It was beautiful. She was at the Texas Book Festival last time up, but I didn't get to go see her, so I do know. It's beautiful.
What a lovely day. I got to say hi to Naomi too. Where's my phone number?
Beautiful.